Hey guys, so last weekend I saw the 10th Saw movie, and I went from leaving the theater thinking, okay, this was all right, to, man, I have a lot of problems with this movie, back to not only is this movie all right, but it actually works. So I'll talk a little bit about the movie without giving any spoilers, and then I'll definitively say, okay, now I'm going to spoil the movie and put my thoughts about it. So what the movie, like I said, it's the 10th Saw movie. And in this one, it takes place, and you can gather this information from the trailer, it takes place basically between Saw 1 and 2. So John Kramer has already started doing the jigsaw thing, but he's just started, right? Because I think he dies in, I don't know, I'm going to say the fifth one. I think he died in the fifth one when he, I guess I spoiled it. If you look, I'm doing spoilers for Saw 1 through 9, possibly. 9 being Spiral, all right? So in this one, he gets a procedure, or at least he thinks he's getting a procedure, and he basically gets scammed by these people who claim they can cure his cancer, and you don't want to scam a serial killer, and there you go. Okay, so now I'm going to get into spoilers of this, and I'm going to kind of assume you've seen the movie because I'll probably reference things without fully explaining it. Okay, so watching this movie, I'll say my final thoughts on it now at this point is actually, I would rank it probably the third best movie, I think. I would say it goes 1, 2, and then this one. I find all the Saw movies somewhat entertaining, even the bad ones. But I'm not a big fan of the gory horror whatever and type of horror movies like, some people call it torture porn, your Green Infernos, your Hostels. I've seen these movies. Actually, I've never seen Green Inferno, and I've never seen Cannibal Holocaust either. But I have seen some of the torture porny movies. I'm not a big fan of them. That's probably why I've never seen Green Inferno, and I'll never watch I won't keep wanting to say Hannibal Holocaust, but Cannibal Holocaust. But I do find these somewhat entertaining, right? But where the movie started to lose me, before it brought me back in when I thought about it more, and I'm overthinking this movie, I know. But as I was leaving the theater, I started thinking of a scene in the beginning of the movie where, okay, so Kramer's in the hospital, and he sees a man who's got cancer, and then an orderly's going through the guy's belongings, and Kramer, it cuts back to Kramer getting this guy in a warehouse and putting him in the trap that you see on the movie poster, the eye trap, and then you find out that actually doesn't happen in the movie. That scene that's in the poster, if you've stuck around and you haven't seen the movie, that actually doesn't happen in the movie. That's actually something that Kramer is imagining doing to someone who he sees trying to steal another patient's things. That's the scene that kind of got me, because if I were sitting there, and if any other sane person were observing, this, and I think it was a cancer patient, it was someone in the hospital, and they're unconscious or they're asleep or whatever, and an orderly is taking their things, you would be like, I'm going to call the nurse, maybe I'll confront the person. But John Kramer's mind went to, I know how I'm going to build a perfect trap to get this guy back. And at that point, I'm like, oh, this dude is really insane. I mean, the reasons he was putting people in his traps were already kind of bad. Like in one of the movies, he put a guy in a trap because after his son had died, he became depressed and became neglectful of his daughter. I think it's not a good thing to do, but I think becoming depressed, and even becoming depressed at the detriment of other people in your family, is something that would happen. And then another guy he put in a trap because basically the guy was a smoker. So John Kramer already kind of like, you cross the road without looking both ways. You don't appreciate life. I mean, he's already just looking to put somebody in a trap. So that just confirmed it. I'm like, this guy is nutty as a fruitcake. But at some point, we are supposed to, they keep trying to, they give us more and more of his story, and it's like they're trying to get us to be sympathetic to him. And they even try to show how he is a good person with his moral code when he sees a little boy who is innocent of these things being tortured. And that's supposed to humanize John Kramer even that much more. And you can't ask us to humanize someone who's been putting people in these god-awful traps. Like, he's a serial killer. But then I realized that I'm kind of looking at John Kramer the wrong way. And it's what makes good horror films and good horror films and makes good horror film villains good horror film villains. So here, I think the best horror films where you have a killer are the ones where the killer is a force of nature, where you do not know anything about the killer. Okay. So, for example, if you think about the Halloween movies, the Halloween movies are best when Michael Myers is just evil. Why did he decide to murder his whole family when he was a kid? We don't know. It doesn't matter. He has the blackest eyes. He's evil. He's evil. As Loomis says or whatever. Get out of there, Michael. He's evil. And we're cool with that. But when you start giving all this backstory, excuse me, I'm keeping that in. Like Rob Zombie did, that's when it kind of falls off the wagons. Even with Freddy Krueger. Look, we know that Freddy Krueger was depending on which movie you go with, excuse me, guys, he's either a child killer or a child molester. But we really, in the first movie, even though we have that background, he represents the fears in our dreams, our deepest fears of our dreams coming to life. Right? So we have this backstory explaining. I'm going to keep coughing. I'm going to have to edit some of this stuff out. Anyway, I'm not going to edit out. But we have some of this backstory to explain how he became this dream demon. But all that really matters is he's a dream demon. And I'll give another movie, for example, The Collector and the Collection. We never actually see the collector's face in that movie. We see a bit of his profile. We see a little bit of his home. But we don't really see who he is because we don't need to see his face. He is our fears. He's a home invader. He can't be stopped. He's cruel. He's vicious. You don't even feel safe in your own home. And that's what he represents. So for me, the more I learned about John Kramer, it's like, look, we have the setup of why he's doing this stuff, but he isn't supposed to be, he's supposed to be a faceless, nameless force of nature. And it seemed like the more we learned about him, the more of a problem it became. But then I started thinking, instead of comparing John Kramer to Michael Myers or even The Collector, because, even the traps that The Collector sets up are kind of similar to what John Kramer, sets up, the Jigsaw. We should think of him like John Doe from Se7en. So if you don't remember, John Doe is murdering people based on he perceives them as breaking one of the cardinal deadly sins. And we don't learn much about John Doe, but we get little hints of it. We find out that he's been reading certain books. He's been doing his research. We also find out that he's keeping trophies. So he's probably guilty of these himself. He says at the end that he's guilty of envy, but he's also probably guilty of pride. And because he believes in this system, he's within that system, you break one of the cardinal sins, you have to die. So we learn a little bit about John Doe. And John Doe isn't really a complete force because these other antagonists, they're almost superhuman. John Doe isn't superhuman. And the rules, the universe that he creates, he's also subject to it. So when I look at Kramer, I kind of look at Kramer as if John Doe is kind of a Catholic Christian, manifestation of sin. This concept of the deadly sins, come from medieval theology. Then Kramer almost represents kind of a Brahmic version of that. And what I mean by that is kind of almost like a Buddhist concept. Now, this is where I'm going to really be talking at my butt because I don't know much about the Brahmic faith. And if someone's watching this and you're a Buddhist, I do not mean, you're going to be like, no, you have no understanding of Buddhism. Like I took I took a class in Eastern religion and philosophy in college, and I made a C. So this is a very rudimentary understanding. But you have this concept, when Westerners say karma, they think it's like you do bad things happen to you. You do good things happen to you. And karma is almost, it's not really it. It's almost like a force. Like it's just you do an intention and action. And that's basically what it means. There's karma are actions. And there's well-meaning actions and well-meaning intentions. And there's good-meaning intentions and good-meaning actions. Or I should say bad. I'm sorry. There's well-meaning and good. And then there's, not well-meaning and bad. And these forces, almost the way, you push against something, it pushes back against you. Those are those actions. And that's, if you think of John Kramer in that sense, it makes sense. But he's also subject to these forces, just like John Doe was. So the reason I would make the comparison to more, I guess, Buddhism as opposed to the Hindu faith, if you will, which kind of has similar ideas, is that, well, in Buddhism, it's kind of like you have this cycle, this repeating of birth and of death and rebirth. But Buddhism introduces the idea of breaking this cycle by expedient means. And John Kramer, at one point, and don't ask me what movie he does this, but at one point he tries to, we get a flashback and we see that he tried to commit suicide. And he survives the wreck. And he's reborn. And he's reborn into this force. So these people who do these things, these actions, there's the pushback. But there's an opportunity to break out of the cycle. So you've been in this cycle, this spiral of bad actions. And now you can kind of break this cycle, if you will. And that seems to be what John Kramer represents. Now, ultimately, he's not fully broken the cycle because he's going to die. And that's going to be it. So he's, even within these forces, he's still part of it, though. So when I think of it that way, not really evil or good, but just a force of nature, getting to know him better, it's seeing that he is still part of that he's still within that cycle, and that he still wrestles with it. Because at one point we see that even after he started becoming the jigsaw killer, at one point when he thinks he's healed, he's like, well, I'm going to stop doing this. And he finds out, no, you haven't broken the cycle yet, buddy. Now, I'm probably thinking way deeper about these movies than I should. But to me, that's kind of, I have fun with that. I'm all about like watch a movie, interpret it as you will. I mean, at the end of the day, look, it's about a guy who wears a weird robe, dresses up in pig mask, and tortures people. Which, by the way, the whole pig mask thing, if you remember, in one of the movies, he wanted his child to be born on the year of the pig, because that has some symbolism in the Chinese zodiac. So once again, maybe there's another, Asian religion theme there. I don't know. Anyway, if you like these movies, if you've seen them all, you'll probably like it if you like them. Like I said, I would put it I put it as the third best one, and they'll probably be an 11, and I'll probably go watch it. As a matter of fact, I know I'll watch it.